Hear these words from the Gospel of John. The next day, John again was standing with two of his disciples. As he watched Jesus walked by, he exclaimed, "Look, here is the Lamb of God." The two disciples heard him say this, and they followed Jesus. When Jesus turned and saw them following, he said to them, "What are you looking for?" And they said to him, "Rabbi," which translated means teacher, "where are you staying?" He said to them, "Come and see." They came and saw where he was staying, and they remained with him that day. It was about 4:00 in the afternoon. One of the two who heard John speak and followed him was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. He first found his brother Simon and said to him, "We have found the Messiah," which is translated anointed. He brought Simon to Jesus, who looked at him and said, "You are Simon, son of John. You are to be called Cephas," which is translated Peter. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now, Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him, about whom Moses and the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus, the son of Joseph from Nazareth." Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." When Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him, he said to him, "Here is truly an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." Nathanael asked him, "Where did you get to know me?" Jesus answered, "I saw you under the fig tree before Philip called you." Nathanael replied, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus answered, "Do you believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than these." And he said to him, "Very truly I tell you, you will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man." This is the gospel according to John. Thanks be to God. So we're saddened that Pastor Alice couldn't be with us tonight. Pastor Alice has been on parental leave, for those who may not remember. And today was supposed to be her first Sunday back, but out of precaution, she is home taking care of herself, which is what we want her to do. And we are also just grateful for the folks who came out to worship this evening and who are worshiping with us online. Snowy here in Denver, and that doesn't always lead to wanting to leave one's home. So we are grateful. The week after Christmas, yes, it does. The two, yes. We got snow Christmas and we got snow New Year's, as Pastor Matt just said. And it's one of those things where it's always a low attendance Sunday where folks are like, "I'm good, it's the new year." So I always joke that if you come on either the Sunday after Christmas or after New Year's, you get extra Jesus points. So you get all your Jesus points. Our text today from the Gospel of John reminds me that we can't do life alone. Unlike the other Gospels, where Jesus walks along the beaches and says, "Come and follow me," and they drop their fishing nets, drop whatever they're doing, and come. This one feels more, not going to say realistic, but maybe more relational in some ways, because it's the disciples who gather one another. As Matt noted at the beginning of the service about what he was to preach this morning at Heritage UMC, it requires invitation. And what's interesting is only one of the disciples, or what would be known as a disciple in our text from John, is actually invited. The others kind of naturally follow Jesus, and then he says, "Come and see." And the others then go and tell after they have experienced Christ. And for me, that is very much how my faith journey has been. Granted, I grew up in a home where folks were Christ followers already, so the cards were stacked in favor of that. But going to church or finding community was very much an invitation. And realizing that Christ could not have been who Christ was without invitation or without witness, and that the disciples couldn't have either, makes me realize that I am part of that lineage. I'm a part of that invitation to bear witness. Bear witness to the good in folks' lives, the struggles in folks' lives, and to realize that we don't have to do it alone. As much as our society here in the West is very independent, and at most it's that nuclear like family of whether it's chosen or blood or marriage, and then outside of that, sometimes it gets more, where we focus on others and we see each other as communal. But more often than not, we come from this individualistic approach. And sometimes that can mean, oh, I'm not going to share what I'm going through. Or I'm not going to go there because I don't want people to think I'm needy, or I can't do it on my own, or I don't want them to know my business. At least that's how it was in my family. We keep our stuff to ourselves, kind of thing. And that's well and good. The trick to that, though, is that sometimes folks don't know how to meet you in your needs or how to journey alongside you. I was reminded of this this past week. One of my dear friend's husbands died. And we knew it was coming. And she's in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I can't be there. And yet I know I am bearing witness to this transition in her life as she becomes a widow and a mother of 4 by herself. And yet she has invited all of us in. So we've been able to bear witness to the transition of life from this to the next for her husband, Bruce. And while it's brought about sorrow and grief and just this feeling of unfairness, I am so grateful that she's allowed us to bear witness. This morning, we dedicated my 2 children in the 10:30 service, where we pledge, my husband and I, that we're going to do what we can to teach them to love justice, seek mercy, and walk humbly with their God, and hopefully we don't screw them up too much in the process. And if we do, that there's this larger community that can hopefully help them, especially being a pastor's kid. And it required people to bear witness to dedicate my children. It requires bearing witness to be known. Christ needed people to bear witness to who he was for him to be fully Christ. We were meant to be in relationship with each other. We were meant to do life together. And we all get to choose how we do that. And there's no real right or wrong. I do think it helps when we can do it together, when we can bear the load for one another. And so on this first Sunday of 2022, maybe it feels like the past 2 years have been a lot to bear. Maybe it's even longer than that. And you're going, man, if I have to say that I need help or I need support one more time, I just don't think I can do it. I hope you can hear that you're not alone. And if you ask, I pray people show up. And I hope that we as a community of faith can show up for each and every one of you. We're not going to do it great. We're going to fail. We're going to have shortcomings. And when we do, I hope you can name that with us. That you can bear witness to us as a community to say, hey, I needed you to be here a little bit differently for me. So that we can grow and learn how to be in relationship. Sometimes church comes across as a place as just having it all together. Maybe it doesn't. I really don't think that, but I'm sure there's folks who do. And yet I'm reminded that my parents have been in town, our families have been in town this past week, and I'm still learning how to be in proper relationship with my parents because all of us have grown and changed over the years. I am no longer the 13-year-old that they once raised, and they are no longer the parents that I knew when I lived under their roof. So we continue to learn each other. And when we're in community, we do that as well. But sometimes it feels like too much work. And that's fair, because we have a lot of other relationships we got to put work into. But maybe this year, we can figure out how to bear witness to one another a little bit differently. Maybe we can be community a bit more intentionally. And just as Christ shared with others, maybe we can be bold enough to invite and share others. Maybe they need a community like this one, or a small group, or an activity small group that we have midweek, just to connect and make relationships. Maybe they need worship, whether it's this service or the 10:30 or our healing and wholeness services. Maybe we're not the community for you. I know this is weird to hear a pastor say, but we're not for everybody. But we will sure as heck try to find you a church that is for you, because we believe in church. We believe in community. And one of the best ways we can love folks is figuring out if we're the right community for you. I hope we are. But if we're not, know that we will love and bless and support that journey. And maybe it's that you're worshiping with us online and you're trying to figure out how to make deeper connections. Reach out to me. I will help figure out how to make those connections alongside you. Whether it's one of our hybrid classes where you can be on Zoom or in person, or maybe it's a way of creating a small group just for those who strictly worship online. Creativity comes from invitation, and I hope that we can continue to meet one another in whatever seasons 2022 brings. Today is also Epiphany Sunday, and while our text did not capture that, we're told that on Epiphany, the wise ones followed a star. And they followed a star to meet the new king. Following a star is pretty remarkable, especially in cities where we can't see stars in the same way. It doesn't have that same impact until you go and there's not that light pollution, and you look up and you see how magnetic and magnificent and majestic the skies are. And I'm reminded that we too are stardust. And so I imagine that these wise ones followed the own stardust in themselves as they followed the star that led them to Christ. And in doing so, they experienced a new way of being. They experienced a new way of even returning home. They didn't go back to Caesar Augustus, Herod. Wrong part of the Christmas story. They didn't go back to, or Caesar, but they did not go back to Herod. And in that, they allowed our journey of following Christ to happen. Had they gone back to Herod, Christ may have died. But they were bold enough to go a different way, to experience something totally different for them and risk. I hope in the thoughts, or at least in the essence of Epiphany, that we too can follow that light of Christ and create new ways and new paths of being. So whatever that invitation or witnessing may look like for you this coming year, I hope you know you're not alone. And I hope you know that we need you. The world needs you in all that you do. And if you need a church or small group or people to simply walk alongside you, to remind you that you are beloved, that you are God's own, I pray that we do that for you. For we all need to bear witness to one another's lives. There's nothing insignificant about any single one of you. May we follow it like the wise ones followed the stars, for you are just as majestic and magnetic and marvelous. May you allow us to bear witness to all the goodness that you have. Amen.